Hello, friends and lovers. Welcome back to another Hades 2 weapon guide. And today we got to go over the torches. We're going to talk about all the aspects, boons, hammers, that kind of thing, what kind of builds you should use for each one. And I know a few of you have been asking me about Arcana, which cards you should use for every aspect. But the thing is, it doesn't change that much between every single aspect and every single weapon. I do have an Arcana guide that is in my guides playlist that will be linked below if you're so interested. But otherwise, this is a pretty standard Arcana setup I use for, I don't know, 60%, and then there's just some slight alterations. But anyway, let's get into the aspects and talk about those first. So first off, we're probably going to talk a lot about the weapon, but we'll also talk about aspect of Mel. Your attacks and specials may deal critical damage, 10% crit chance. That's actually really good, I should point out. That is incredibly strong. The crit chance is really good in Hades at 1 and 2 because it deals triple damage. It's a damage multiplier. Pretty much everything else is what we call additive damage. So that Aphrodite boon and Shameless Attitude and all those other percentages from strength and origination, you add all those together, you multiply it by the base damage, but then you multiply all of that by the triple crit if you do land one. So you triple all that damage after the fact, and it's just incredibly strong. So crit chance, very good, but we're going to have to talk about the moveset a little bit. So the torches are a bit different in the sense that you can just channel your Omega attack continuously like this, and you can move around a little bit as you do as well. So this is particularly important because notice how often we use the Omega attack just by holding down the button. You know, you can actually get out Omegas very quickly, particularly if you get certain hammers and a few other channel speed increases and things like that. So thus, one of the better builds that you can do with the Mel torches is something like big magic spend. So you can go for certain boons that will make you spend more magic, but will also help you deal a lot of damage. I mean, some boons just are very, very potent. I'm talking mostly about Fine Line from Hera. So starting with Hera's Keepsake in a run and maybe taking Born Gain first, but then going for Fine Line after that. After that, you can go for Poseidon. You can do Ocean Swell, for instance, too, down here. Your Mega moves also launch a wide wave, but uses +5 magic. Born Gain is a very strong magic regen boon as long as you have enough magic to actually make that happen. So you got to aim for these magic spend boons like Fine Line, Ocean Swell, Born Gain, Max Magic. There's also Cut Above, probably not quite as good. Control Burn only works for the Omega special, so you probably don't really want that as much. You can also consider certain things like Heartbreakers from Aphrodite, which give you heart throbs for every time you spend at least 40 magic, you know what I mean? And if you're channeling that often and that much, you're going to get a lot of these. It's actually really, really fun to go for this, honestly. And it deals a lot of damage. It's just a really strong build. I'm not even kidding. Might be one of the stronger Mel aspects we have in the game. You'd also want to use Hecuba probably to start this run to make sure you just have enough magic to make this happen. You'd probably want to avoid things that prime too much magic on you, like Static Shock, which might seem good in a situation like this, but again, the priority should be about spending magic elsewhere, not necessarily priming it, so it could be a big detriment. The other build for this that I recently highlighted on the channel is mostly around just spamming the regular special button here. Now, there's sort of some issues. It's okay. It's pretty good as is, and if you get the Hidden Helix Hammer, which gives you one more special, regular special, I mean, too. Oh, there it is at the top. It also does Omega specials as well, but the point is, like, doubling this damage that we're doing right now is just really, really strong with Hidden Helix. Just throw Aphrodite on the special, and you'll have, like, a weirdly strong run. You can check out my video where I did that, but yeah, aspect of Mel, very good. I wouldn't really think too much about using the Omega special. I mean, you certainly can, but it's just not as strong as those other archetypes that we just discussed, I think. Next up is aspect of Moros. Your attacks linger for 2 seconds and explode in a blast when struck by your specials. Blast damage plus 60%. I'm going to be honest, I don't understand how they calculate the blast damage precisely, like what the base damage is or anything like that. But the point is, it's just really big. I mean, look at the damage numbers from exploding those attacks right now. So the way you'd want to play this aspect is to basically charge an Omega special and then just hold down the attack button until that Omega special runs out. And it just deals a lot of damage. This is pretty easily the strongest aspect for the torches. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the most fun, but it's super simple. It's super easy to get going. One of the better instances that just clears rooms really fast is to start with Hera's Keepsake and maybe start with, like, her special or even her attack. Both are fine there, honestly. And then just spread that hitch around on all the enemies as you go. Blitz is always really good and strong to take at any point in these runs as well. Now, in terms of attack boons, you kind of want a percentage boon because the base damage is so high, basically, you know? So you could take Hera's attack, for instance. Hera's special also works really well. If you get a really high rarity hair attack in Chamber 1, like an epic, and then you can turn it heroic, I'd probably just take it personally, and you'd have a really good run. But yeah, a high percentage boon like from Aphrodite would work really well. Hera works well. Demeter has a lower percentage, and so does Ares, so probably not as big of a deal. Apollo's attack is really nice just because that extra AoE just feels good. You can really feel that extra AoE when you explode those ghosts. So yeah, that's sort of the goal with the aspect, is to just keep exploding those ghosts. You got to keep up that Omega special. For hammers, you know, we'll talk about the hammers later, but there's some really good ones there. Things that give you more Omega specials or make them last longer feels really nice. There's also some things that just make your Omega attacks go much faster as well. But yeah, Moros, it's very simple, very easy to build for. It's kind of hard to totally mess it up, you know. Just make sure you get origination going, and you're going to have a really good run, I think. All right, aspect of Eos is one of the quirkier ones, right? Your Omega attack fires a Daybreaker that deals the damage in an area around it every 2 seconds. The Daybreaker blast damage is 150. Now, it does say it only on the tooltip on the right here. A slow-seeking shot that blasts nearby foes and copies your specials. You can only have one at a time. So, what do they mean here? So, you use an Omega attack, right? And then, whenever you use a special or an Omega special, so does the Daybreaker. So, it'll mimic that. So, kind of one of the better things to do here is to probably... I think you walk into a room, you get out your Daybreaker, and then you just start spamming probably the regular special. Hidden Helix isn't actually offerable on this aspect. The one I brought up for aspect of Mel earlier, that gives you +1 special, unfortunately. I guess it was just considered too strong or something, I'm going to guess. But yeah, that's sort of the bread and butter for Eos. And Eos might be a little bit tougher to get going entirely, you know? The best runs I've seen and that I've had with it just start with Zeus's special, you know, and you kind of just make sure you keep applying Blitz, and then you let the Daybreaker blast damage that we see popping off every couple seconds there try to trigger that Blitz a little bit early or something, you know? I think that's the best instance I got for Eos. Eos is a quirky one, but I'll admit I don't have a lot of good ways to make it pop. You know, I just brought up Zeus, you know, and you put Zeus on the special, and then you just go for the Zeus sort of menagerie of boons, you know what I mean? So, like, even Static Shock is probably okay here, you know. Power Surge, not so much. I mean, Lightning Lance is always a nice boon. There's Static Shock. Double Strike is always nice to make your Blitz trigger more often. Arc Flash is actually kind of an interesting question about this, and Arc Flash is just kind of a quirky boon, right? Damage from your mega moves immediately activates Blitz and makes them stronger. So how does that work with the Daybreaker blast damage? I'm gonna be honest, I just teed myself up for this, but I don't know. I don't know if it actually works or not. But the point is that Daybreaker blast damage already triggers Blitz if it hits the enemies, you know? In terms of an attack boon, you'd probably just want to make sure you're making origination happen or something. You know, like Wounds is fine there, legitimately. It's pretty good. You can put Ares on there since it only fires every 2 seconds anyways, the way I'm looking at it. So you get a little bit of extra power out of that. But I mean, even Aphrodite or something. This is a question that keeps coming up for me, is Aphrodite's attack with the Daybreaker, you know? Does that count? What counts as nearby enemies? Do they have to be near the Daybreaker, or do they have to be near Mel? Now, I'm going to be honest again, I don't remember the answer to that, but if you know the answer, let me know, since I just teed myself up for that again. Lastly, and possibly the most fun aspect we got, one of the most fun aspects we have in the entire game, aspect of Supay, I guess it's pronounced nowadays. You have the Devil Sparks, which also enhance your rush boon damage plus 30%. But it has an alternate moveset that you have to try to read on the right there, forgive me. Fires automatically. Omega attack and Omega special Rain Hell for 4 seconds is all it says. Rain Hell is a bit of an exaggeration, I would describe it. But yeah, the attack and special just go. You know what I mean? So this is one of the better aspects to kind of pay attention to the enemies more with, you know? The fact that you don't have to actually use the attacker special yourself allows you to focus more on dodging and sprinting, and then that way if you start with a sprint boon, then you can kind of just have a better time and an easier time focusing on those areas. Because the truth is, if you're trying to focus on getting particular combos out, using an Omega, using a regular, you know, trying to do like a Morrigan thing or something like that, it's hard to also watch the enemies and dodge all of their attacks at the same time, I gotta say. So what's best with Supay? Well, there's some really, really good dash boons for this, I would say. One of the first ones, again, you know, I gotta bring up Zeus, Thunder Rush, then you go for Double Strike, and, you know, you can go crazy and go for King's Ransom and get a bunch of palms on it, you know what I mean, by purging all of those Hera boons. It just feels really good. That's definitely gonna be one of the better ones. Hera's Dash is actually quite strong in an average build. Unfortunately, it doesn't feel great with Supay, and that's mostly because Hitch has a very long cooldown. You can only reapply Hitch every 8 seconds. That is forever. You know, you don't want to wait around for that. So you do get that initial damage bonus, and Nexus Rush can inflict a lot of damage if you get high rarity and get some palms on it, but that 8 seconds just takes forever. And, you know, it's kind of bad in that sense. It feels like kind of wasted potential. So I don't really recommend Nexus Rush with this bad boy. But Poseidon probably has, again, one of the better ones here. Breaker Rush, whenever you sprint, you hit the first foe, you run into with the blast that knocks foes away. You have to start recharging your sprint after you use Breaker Rush, if that makes sense. So in other words, that first hit that you get on an enemy will require you to recharge your sprint and start re-dashing again. You can't just continuously dash around. That's the downside. But the base damage is just so high. It's so good. One thing to note is this damage does not count as a splash. Notice how it says impact blast damage. As much as it looks like a splash, it is not a splash. Meanwhile, Tidal Ring, Wave Flourish, and Wave Strike, that all specific says splash damage. So in other words, what am I saying? It does not work with, where is it, Slippery Slope, because that only affects your splash effects, I am afraid. But yeah, that's very strong here. Demeter, unfortunately, her dash boon is just too low base damage. It's just not very good. And even if you get air quality, you're losing out on the damage bonus from Supay then. So it just doesn't matter. In other words, air quality will bring this damage up to 50, but there's kind of no point in using Supay at that point. You know, Apollos doesn't deal damage, so you wouldn't want it. Passion Rush is just sort of a pain, and you have to keep dashing around, and yeah, just not great is what I would say. Although I haven't used it lately. Hef is like almost good. Almost good. Almost good, I'd say, because the base damage is so high, right? But even if you get this down to 2 seconds, it just feels like too much work and too much investment. It is good if you get the minimum time all the way down again, but you're going to have to wait a while to make that happen. And again, like I said, I think it just takes a bit too much to really be worth it. But if you just want a quirky run, it's actually not too bad. And another surprise one is Heat Rush. I'm actually quite surprised at how strong this feels, because otherwise, whenever I have Heat Rush, I almost don't even notice whatever the hell it's doing. But with Supay, it's good. It's honestly good. It feels really nice. Get a high rarity, get some palms on it, deal the damage, and I think you'll have a nice time. This is not Scorch. It does not apply Scorch. You should know. It's its own damage, but it does actually stack up damage really quickly. Ares, I know I'm going through every single dash here right now, just so we know. Ares is an interesting one in that it can be good, but it's going to start off kind of weak, you know? Even if you get a high rarity, even if you get a few palms in it, it feels kind of rough, you know what I mean? Because you have to dash to create the row, which isn't a big deal. But then it just takes forever to fall down, and it just takes a while for it to come back. However, it will feel good if you manage to grab the duo boons related to the sword drop. So I'm thinking Coffin Nail here, which makes them fall instantly and makes them deal a little bit more damage. Cutting Edge gives them +1 time in a bigger area of effect. If you get both of those, you're going to have an amazing run, and it's going to feel really good. But until you get both of those things, it just doesn't feel great, I'm afraid. But that's enough about the actual dash boons with Supay, I guess. You know, what do you want to do with, like, the special and the attack? I mean, it's nice to kind of throw an Omega attack in particular when you first walk into a room and then let that go. It only hits like 4 or 5 times, and then you'd have to recharge it again. I wouldn't focus too hard on it. You know, I've never really had a good run that focuses on the Omega attack and the Omega special too much. I mean, theoretically, you can do it, right? And you can just keep them both going, and then you do some sprints, and then you recharge on occasion or something. And it's good to make sure you activate, like, the Huntress or something like that from your Arcana cards. But, you know, I would mostly focus on those on the attack and special just for, you know, origination purposes, so that you get that +50% damage bonus from 2 curses. So as always, Zeus is good, you know, to apply that blitz on occasion via, say, the special. Terror is always good to apply Hitch. Freeze if you just want that nice utility. Scorch is pretty good on, you know, either the attack or special since you hit relatively rapidly. Practically anything works and it feels really nice. Focus on getting a nice fun rush boon at the start, I would say. Alright, I had a lot to say about Supay, but now let's move on to the hammers. Hidden Helix, your specials create +1 projectile. Cannot get it with EOS, you should know. Really, really strong, like we said, with Aspect of Mel, potentially if you just want to spam the regular special, but you kind of got to know that you're going for that early on, you know? If you don't get this hammer, like, relatively early in the first, like, 5-ish chambers, it's kind of hard to gear your build toward it, you know what I mean? So, unfortunately, might not be great there. Really strong with Aspect of Moros, so I would definitely recommend it. With Supay, it's okay. Yeah, it's actually one of the better ones, I would say. You can coil channel your Omega special 20% faster, and it uses -10 magic. That 20% faster feels really, really good, especially with Moros. You know, Moros where you want to be using the Omega special every single chamber, several times per chamber, almost certainly. That faster channeling is just super convenient, and it feels really good. -10 magic might be a little convenient too, so pretty good hammer there. Otherwise, it's kind of okay on the rest of them. Furious Blaze, while you channel your attacks, you move and fire 20% faster. it's whatever. It's actually not that good. Maybe it's okay with like aspect of Mel, you know, just for convenience sake, but it doesn't like, you don't feel it that much, I think, you know what I mean? You don't feel it that much. Melting Helix, your specials deal plus 100 to damage armor. It's okay. You know, in terms of armor melting hammers, because each weapon kind of has one, it's probably lower on the totem pole just because it's only 100 damage armor, but it's kind of a decent option if the rest aren't really speaking to you. Enduring Coil, your Omega Special lasts 2 seconds longer. This is probably best for Moros again. Aspect of Eos it works pretty well with just to keep an Omega Special out. Makes it more viable. It's okay with Supay, I guess I would say. So, pretty decent is how I would describe it. Mega Blazer attacks fire 20% further and deal plus 30% damage. The further thing I'd never noticed, to be honest. You know, I can't really notice that it's actually going anywhere, so I don't know if that really matters. So, I look at this as basically plus 30% damage to my attack. So, it's okay with Mel and Moros. I don't actually know if that affects the Eos damage to be precise, you know what I mean? Eos does take on your attack boon, I should say. Whenever you, whatever attack boon you have, Eos will also use that attack boon. It doesn't overlap with, like, Heft, though. I probably should have said that for the Eos part, but what can you do? Dividing Blaze, your attack split in two the first time they strike foes. You cannot have Moros, you cannot have it with Eos. It's kind of weird, you know? If you have, say, you know, a splash attack from Poseidon with aspect of Mel, I guess it's kind of something. I don't know if I really care about this with Supay, though. So, I don't know. I almost never take it. It sounds like it's pretty good for, like, room clear, but otherwise, it just doesn't do much. You can't really hit one enemy with the splits, because they pop out after the enemy's hitbox, generally, I would say. So, I just don't think it's really worth most of the time. Inverted Blaze, your attacks linger for plus 2 seconds and launch backward after you dash. Kind of a weird one again. A little bizarre. It actually works a little bit best with Supay, I think, if anything, where you can kind of keep the attacks around and kind of keep them following you and stuff like that. It actually feels pretty decent there, but otherwise for the rest of them, I haven't really found the sauce with it. Now, this is one of the best ones. Sunburst, you channel your Mega Attack faster, 50% faster, and it uses -1 magic. Incredibly strong with aspect of Mel in that magic spend build I talked about, because you're just going to send out those Omegas so much faster. One might say 50% faster. And then Moros, incredibly strong with aspect of Moros. And with Eos, you know, you get Eos out faster, so that's convenient, but probably not as strong with the other aspects, but it's just such a good hammer generally. Rising Helix, your specials grow in size to deal up to 25% damage the longer they're active. I feel like 25% just isn't enough a little bit for something like this. It's just not great. It's just kind of weak, I would say, overall. Whirling Helix, projectiles from your specials orbit 20% faster. It's okay. There's usually some better ones, like the one that makes your specials last longer, or Hidden Helix that gives you +1 special. Those two are definitely better. This one's kind of a runner-up after those if you're using your specials a lot, though, I would say. Lenin Blaze, your attacks knock foes away and have +10 power. It's mostly about that +10 power, right? It's okay, again, if you're using your attacks a lot, so aspect of Mel in the magic spend build, aspect of Mars, it's okay. Supay is kind of okay, I think, with this too, but only a little bit. And last one, this one's only for Supay, even. Demonic Cell, as long as you sprint, your attacks and specials have +5 power. You know, it's not on all the time, and +5 power just feels like so little. And I know you get free attacks and specials, so it should be good in that way, but +5 just feels like nothing, you know what I mean? It just feels like absolutely nothing. They probably shouldn't have even had a condition for it, because I think +5 is too low impact. Lenin Blaze is already on the cusp of kind of being too low impact as it is. But yeah, there you go. All right, that's it for my torch guide. Like, comment, subscribe. You know what I'm talking about. If you got build suggestions for myself or for others around the torches, around any of the aspects, or if you got any answers to some of the questions I asked, make sure you let me know down in the comments. I do appreciate it. Coming up next is the axe. I got to tell you, and of course, we got to cover the other weapons soon. But thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you in another video.